Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends, I'm back today with another video, and this time it's more of a speculation video. As you've learned over the course of the last few months, Snowprint have started to introduce a sixth character for new factions. The first was Titus, followed by Dreer, then we got Commander Farsight, and then most recently we've had Balder for the Space Wolves. At time of recording there are 21 factions in the game, and I thought it would be a fun thought exercise to go through each faction and try and guess or speculate who might be the sixth character. Some of the inspiration for this has come from the popular YouTuber Auspex Tactics. I'm a big fan of his channel, and I note that every time he does a video, he does a little segment on every single faction that gives every viewer, regardless of their alignment, a little bit of something to chew on. We recorded this video towards the end of March, but the video is only being released about a month later. I'm mentioning that because more information may have come to light in terms of sixth characters for these factions, but I'll present this video as it was originally intended, and hopefully you'll enjoy our discussion. To help me with this video, I've brought along friend and former Tacticus content creator, Draupnir. Draupnir, how are you?
What it do? I'm well, Nandi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming back. So I've given you a bit of the premise. We haven't really talked about who we might discuss. And what I've done, in fact, what I'll do to guide our conversation is I'll just bring up my own Tacticus game here. So you can't see the screen, Draupnir, but I'm just sort of looking at my own roster in the game, and it just helps me look at each faction in turn, and we can sort of guide the discussion there. So the top of my screen is Ultramarines. We're going to skip them since they've already had Titus. Number 2 is Astra Militarum. Again, we'll skip them because we have Dreer. Number 3 is the Tau, and again, we'll skip them because they have Farsight. So the first faction to discuss is the Adepta Sororitas, and as the guest, I'll give you first offer. The Adepta Sororitas, who do you think will be their sixth character?
Well, they have a lot of characters, but I'm inclined to say that they will get Sisters Repentia. This is a very famous unit, or perhaps an infamous unit, depending on who you are on the tabletop. They are ladies wielding massive chainswords. They're tough, they're killy, they're very exciting. I think they will make a good fit for Tacticus.
Yeah, I agree. I had Repentia down on my sort of list when I was sketching things out. I guess part of the motivation for this, and we might as well have this in the earlier segments to save it later on, I think that Snowprint are interested in releasing sixth characters that are popular, iconic, and will draw a lot of people to the game, right? So take, for example, Dreer for the Astra Militarum. That's going to get your Death Corps of Krieg players into the game. Commander Farsight's iconic, you know, that needs no introduction. Titus is iconic, again, no introduction. So I guess they want really flavorful, iconic characters for each faction, which ultimately will draw players into the game. And then the extension of that will sell well, which is, you know, good for them and good for their profits. I think the Repentia are good. The other person I thought about was Junith, who I think is a legendary character. Is that right?
Yeah, so she is an epic hero, and funnily enough, she was actually in one of the promotional images for one of the events, if I recall correctly, during the time I was playing, and people were speculating, like, oh, are we going to get her as a character? Are we going to get her as a raid boss? So I can totally see her coming to the game.
Okay, up next we've got the Black Legion, and I have to confess I've probably drawn the short stick here. I'm not super familiar with the Black Legion, and I think that just by the nature of how they're constructed, you could actually have a lot of different things fit in under the Black Legion umbrella. I wondered when I was looking through their sort of model list on the Games Workshop website about whether or not a Possessed might fit into their niche. I guess, you know, you've got Volk, who's an Obliterator, kind of different, but kind of the same, you know, a Space Marine with a bunch of demonic mutations. I couldn't really think of anything else, or could you?
So recently, Games Workshop have revealed a new Mutilator model on Warhammer Community. I am of the opinion that if you look at the previous factions, such as World Eaters and Emperor's Children, they are heavily inclined to put newer models in the game to promote them. Mutilators were historically essentially a melee equivalent of Volk, and last edition they were removed from the game. But Games Workshop is intending to add them back to the game with this brand new model. So I will put my money on us getting Mutilators. Essentially think Volk, but very good at melee.
Okay, yeah, I think I did see that article actually. The models looked pretty cool. Yeah, you're probably right there. So we'll add that to the list. Next up, we have another Chaos faction. The ball's back in your court. So Death Guard. What do you think?
Well, Death Guard is very near and dear to my heart. It was the first ever faction that I actually built, I actually played with. So it's the faction I learned the game with. So I am very biased. There are a few options. For example, I'm always hopeful that we get Death Rod Terminators in the game. However, if I were to make a unbiased guess, I would probably say we will get a Lord of Poxes. It's a newer model. It looks pretty cool. It got a lot of hype when it came out. It's essentially a guy with a big rusted greatsword that inflicts the Death Guard plague in a wider radius than everything else.
Yeah, and I think they had a new model featured on Warhammer Community at the same time, or roughly the same time as the new Tau Ethereal model. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I think I saw that one and it looked awesome. So yeah, okay, great. Any other suggestions, or is that where you're gonna put all your chips?
I think that's where I'm gonna put all my chips. We could probably get another character. Death Guard do have a lot of different character units in the army. Maybe not as much as named characters, but for example, we do not have the Foul Blight spawn in the game. That's a fan favorite. Every Death Guard army has one. It makes it so your opponents can't like move close to you. Actually, maybe that, yeah, Foul Blight spawn or Lord of Poxes. I think those two will be the things that I put my money on.
Okay, great. Orcs, so slightly more familiar territory for me. And when I was making my notes here before we spoke, I had a lot of things down for the orcs. I mean, the orcs are one of the oldest factions in the game. There are so many different ways you can choose to build them, and so many different flavors of orcs and unique characters that we've seen come and go over the years. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think these orcs that are currently in game, are they the Bad Moon clan?
They are the Bad Moons because they're yellow, and they even have the moon thing on them, so
Okay, great. So there's some orc lore. Um, so I had three that I'd kind of put onto my list. I had Snickrot, I had Zogrod, and I also had a Weird Boy. What do you think about those?
So I think orcs struggle a little bit because they have so many characters. Personally, I would like to see a weird boy in the game just to round out the faction, right? They have the melee guys, they have the mech guys, they have the what are they called? The guy who summoned the grots. So I think having and we have the Killacan that's shooty. So I think having something that does psychic damage would be quite cool, just to round out the faction, just to appeal to all those people who like weird boys.
Yeah, I agree. And I think those are the exact same reasons I had that on my list. It'd been awesome for them to get a psyker. I did think about a pain boy briefly, but now, and I don't know if you've been following, but orcs now have a relic, which means that once they get to mythic, they can equip something that sort of gives them and their characters another layer of gameplay. And this relic turns a lot of the orcs into mechs. So Gibboscraps essentially becomes a healer, and I guess that means the pain boy might be a bit redundant. So it's nice that we're on the same track anyway here. After the orcs, we have the Space Wolves, and we are going to skip them because they actually already have their sixth character in the form of Balder, who is a wolf priest. So back to you, Draupnir, and you seem to be lucky or unlucky. You've got another Chaos faction to discuss, the Thousand Sons.
Well, I'm not very familiar with Thousand Sons. However, they quite recently got this new line of models called the Secatar robots. These are essentially quite fast, quite tough shooting platforms with okay melee, and they are very visually distinct than any other Space Marine unit, to be honest with you. So I think they'll be really cool if they were to be added to Tacticus. And I don't think Thousand Sons have any like dedicated shooting unit when it comes to long range. And I'm not talking about psychic, I'm talking like actual guns.
I mean, I've only played a handful of games against the Thousand Sons on tabletop, but are Rubric Marines not like a big part of their tabletop identity?
They absolutely are. It's just, I believe that they are a little too similar to what Thousand Sons have currently in the game, so that I'm just trying to cover a wider area of like different models. That would be my thought process.
Yeah, and I guess that's fair. Now that I've said that, I've actually just realized we already have Rubric Marines as NPCs in the game, so it would be weird to also make them a playable character. Not impossible, but slightly odd, I think. Okay, so back to me, and now we've got Tyranids. So I'll be honest, Draupnir, I really struggled with the Tyranids, and I think a part of that is because they've been in the game for so long. We see so many Tyranids as enemies that a lot of their range has already been exhausted, either by NPCs or by enemy bosses. And also, I think they have a real scale problem. So, for example, we have the Tyranid Prime, which is one of their larger models, but it's created as a summon through the Winged Prime playable character. Then you've got Barbgons, those are already enemy NPCs. The Hive Tyrant is an enemy boss. Then you've already got the Parasite of Mortrex. The Turvigon is already there as an enemy boss. Screamer Killer is already there as an enemy boss. So either you go for something really big, like a Trigon or a Carnifex or something, and then just try and scale it down into a playable character, or you just go with a smaller unit. And I wonder if you go for a smaller unit, something like the Gargoyle. They are smaller. They're not identical to the Parasite of Mortrex. They're just basically a flying Tyranid. And from my own tabletop recollection, they used to attack at range, more of a skirmish type unit. That's probably be my thoughts. What about you?
Well, I viewers of my channel know that there was a hill that I was constantly willing to die on, that Tyranids should get a Hive Tyrant as a playable character. However, after doing the interview with Snowprint, I finally stopped coping and understood that, hey, it's a little too big to be a character, so I should focus on something else. Personally, I would love to see the newly released models, the hyper-adapted Raveners. Tacticus has always excelled at modeling the units. And hyper-adapted Raveners, 1, they're small. 2, they're new. 3, they look so cool. They have shooting, they have melee, they have tricks. I don't know what else to ask for. So personally, I would love to see them. However, another flying unit, as you suggested, would be really cool.
Yeah, actually, now that you've mentioned the Raveners, they do look awesome. And as you've correctly said, we have seen a history of Snowprint modeling their new characters on newer Games Workshop releases. So I wonder if you might be right there. We are back to you, I think, and it's now the Necrons, one of the oldest factions in the game.
So, historically, I have given Snowprint a lot of slack when it comes to what the Necron faction identity actually was. I was saying, hey, some of these characters are horrible, I don't like them. So I will, and this is because I love Necrons. They have so many unique and interesting characters that all do different things. However, that's not really reflected in Tacticus. One character that I would love to see above all else is the Master Pokemon Collector, Illuminor Zares, I think. That's what he's called. I'm horrible with names. But this is essentially the guy that is in the Infinite and the Divine book on tabletop. Yeah, he collects things, right? Like there's the memes about him throwing out Custodes like Pokemon and whatnot. So I think that will be a pretty cool character if it were added to the Tacticus game.
Yeah, and I think they do need a legendary character. And when I speak to Necron players, he seems to be very, very high on the list of wants, and he sounds awesome. I don't know a huge amount about his lore, but the stuff that I have read, he does sound really, really cool. So I hope he is their option. Any other shoutouts?
Any other shoutouts? It's mostly him. The reason I am very insistent on him is because when people get into 40k, they're often told, hey, either read the Inquisitor Eisenhorn books or the Infinite and the Divine. And I've met a lot of people who know of 40k, but their only introduction to the setting is the Infinite and the Divine book. So the character in the book being in the game would be a good pathway for those people to dip their toes in more 40k, because 40k is awesome, and this guy is quite famous.
Yeah, the only two I will throw into the ring, and this is only because they have new models, is Orkan and Necrosaur. But I think as you've said, there's lots of different options for Necrons. I would personally favor a unique or named model because their current guys are fairly generic. Okay, great. So with the Necrons done, we are now onto Black Templars. This is another one I find with these sort of Space Marine sub-factions. It's hard to get characters or units that are specific to the faction, but the name that I had for Black Templars was Grimaldus. I think he's a really popular character who a lot of players want.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Grimaldus, 1, he's fan favorite. 2, Black Templars, despite being the chaplain faction, they don't have a chaplain in Tacticus. So that's a big part of the faction identity that's missing in the game. So I think Grimaldus would be awesome. I do wonder if it would be like a summoner, because he does have those little guys following him around. So I will be excited to see how Snow Prince handles that.
Cool. So short and sweet for the Black Templars. What about the Aeldari? Back to you.
Oh, Aeldari. I always hesitate to make predictions when it comes to Aeldari and Genestealer Cults, just because they have so many characters. It is actually exhausting to sift through all the characters they have on Wikipedia. But I do have one character in mind. Their name I will butcher because I always do. It is the Lycus. This is a unit that got a model a couple months ago, 5, 6, 7 months ago, I think. It's the person with like the spider legs, and then they're kind of standing in that cool pose. There was a lot of hype when they released. So I would, it'll be pretty interesting to see how they turn out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. The Aeldari are so flavorful and so unique, and their whole like aspect warrior. I don't know if that's the same term as modern day, but back when I was playing in 3rd and 4th edition, there were all these different aspects, and you had like sort of Phoenix Lords for each aspect, which I think is why they've got 2 legendary characters, and we're talking about adding in more legendaries as a 6th character. I think Lycus is awesome. When I saw the model released, I was like, I want this, I need this. The model is so cool. I could see a generic Warp Spider if you didn't want to go for Lycus, or I could see you going for one of the other Phoenix Lords. I was chatting to Aaron's, who's one of my Tacticus friends, and he had suggested there could also be somebody called Prince Urael, who I don't know a huge amount about, but is apparently one of the newer releases they've done.
Yeah, recently they've had this, I don't want to say huge, but a relatively sizable release of new models, and he is one of them. He would also be an excellent addition to the game. One hesitation I have when it comes to these legendary characters is that Eldar really struggle from having so many legendary characters that I don't know if a 3rd one or a 4th one, I'm sorry, it's just I'm not up to date on my Eldar stuff, would be reasonable. But, I mean, this thing will be really cool in game, so I'm not going to complain.
The Tau got 3 legendaries, so I don't see why the Aeldari can't get 3 legendary. Okay, so we'll move on from the Aeldari onto the Dark Angels. I'm not the biggest Imperial fanboy, and Dark Angels are a bit of a sort of lore gap for me, if you will. But I know that they are sort of defined by their Terminators and their unique characters. And one character who I saw a lot of people asking for, and who they were disappointed not to get in the initial sort of release, was Belial, the Grand Master of the Deathwing. You could also get sort of generic Deathwing Knights. I know that this guy here, Barakiel's a Deathwing Terminator, so maybe there's too much overlap there. But what do you think, Belial or someone else?
Yeah, on my channel, I think I made like 3 videos predicting Belial. I was very upset when he didn't get released, especially because we have a Terminator character, a non-named Terminator character as a unit, and not Belial. Personally, I've heard the argument that like, oh, Belial's a Terminator guy, the person we already have in the game, is also a Terminator guy. They're too similar. Let's not have them. I don't really buy that argument. Belial, 1, he looks sick. 2, he's a melee beatstick. What else can you ask for? And 3, he'll probably be really good because I don't even know what the Terminator guy's name is in Dark Angels. Like, the only thing I know about him is that because his active ability resets, when I used to play, people would use him to farm missions. Like, come on, we can do better.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't really changed. I'm sorry to let you know, Draupnir. We still have the same hero release events that have, like, do 100 abilities or something like that. So I think people still do that sometimes.
Like, I'm very appreciative of that, right? Like, the fact that he has his own niche and he serves a purpose is very useful. I just think that Dark Angels, they're supposed to be the Terminator Space Marine faction. And the one Terminator they have is essentially just a mission bot. I think it would be really cool if we had another Terminator that was just this badass thing that you would maybe take on Arena, or maybe you will take on guild raids if they're still there, right? Something a little more than just a little checkbox that you unshelf every time there's a legendary release event.
Great. So we're in agreement. Let's move on to the AdMech, and it's back to you.
Yeah, AdMech. I mean, personally, I'm very biased because I think certain characters look cooler than others, especially because they have so many infantry units. And if I recall correctly, there was that one unit in the game that's actually on tank threads. I remember I wasn't super hyped up about them, but it just goes to show that Snowprint, they're willing to add different things. So personally, I would love to see a Sidonian Sketaros. For those of you who don't know, it's this infantry thing that's essentially standing on stilts, and they have a sniper rifle and they shoot things from afar. I think that will be really fun in Tacticus. Personally, if they added that, I might come back, just try to get it. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, those guys they're pretty iconic in the way they look. You could give them Unstoppable or something to represent the fact that they're not, hindered by ice and barbed wires and stuff. The unit that I'd had noted down was the Teraxi Skystalkers, just to give them some flying units. But again, the range is quite small for the AdMech, as I've come to learn when I was doing my research.
Yeah, first of all, excellent choice again. Wings would be really cool. The range, I don't think it's that small. They do have a lot of vehicles. So when you look at their unit list, it's actually deceptively large. But Snowprint mentioned that they don't want to add like bigger things to the game. So I guess in terms of what they can actually add, yeah, it might be smaller than I initially anticipated.
So let's move on to the World Eaters. I think it's back to me. And, I say this every time we get a Space Marine or a Chaos Space Marine faction. The characters that we can add unique to that faction are fairly small. And when I was looking at the World Eaters, there's not really that much in the way of new options that we can choose. So I settled on a Juggernaut type unit. I know when I was playing one of my friends who just loves the World Eaters and loves Khorne, he just like plays with as many units on Juggernauts as he can. It's quite funny to watch. It's like, you used to play one of my other mates who loved Thunderwolf Cavalry, and they just were like cavalry on cavalry battles. I couldn't think of anything else, but I thought a Juggernaut unit might be quite fun and flavorful for the World Eaters. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's actually quite jarring that we are on the same page on so many of these. Personally, I would love to see the named Juggernaut, the Lord Invocatus. He's on a Juggernaut. He's essentially, it's his flying steed. I think last edition, I'm not sure about this edition, but he used to have the flying keyword. So I think that will be really cool. Plus, he looks like super cool. His melee weapon is literally called the Coward's Bane. So I would love to see a Juggernaut guy that's just flying around, axing people. I think it will be really cool.
Yeah, the World Eaters are just fun, aren't they? They're just super fun. I think you can't play this game and hate the World Eaters as a faction.
Yeah.
I can't remember who's next. Is it you? Are you up for Blood Angels?
Sure. So, Blood Angels, I think they're in a very tough spot because I think Snowprint has put themselves in a difficult position by not including certain characters. For example, I always thought that we were gonna get Sanguinary Guard because they are so iconic, everyone loves them. We did get Dante, which is technically on the same bracket as Sanguinary Guard, which makes me wonder, will we even get Sanguinary Guard despite the fact that they're such fan favorite models, or will we get the Sanguinor? Sanguinor is this named character with angel wings that descends from the heavens to protect the Blood Angels and whatnot. But I'm really hesitating to say, like, oh, I'm gonna predict these two, because the fact that they don't have Sanguinary Guard makes me question if Snowprint considers Sanguinary Guard, Dante, and Sanguinor in the same category. So, all that being said, I would like to see Lemartes in the game. He is a chaplain. I think he does. Yeah, he does have a jetpack. He has like 2 pistols. He's pretty cool, and he essentially guides the Death Company so they do their duty instead of going too crazy.
Yeah, my money was going to be on Sanguinary Guard just because they're so iconic in the tabletop. I get what you mean about them being really similar to Dante, but I don't really know what else they can do. On to the Genestealer Cults next, I think. Back to me. I had a couple of ideas here. The first thing I thought about was the Jackals. I thought we could get a Jackal unit. They might be quite fun, quite iconic. I don't think we have any other motorbike units in the game, but we do have mounted units. We've seen that with Dreer, and it would be fun to get more mounted units. We've already talked about a mounted unit for the World Eaters. Genestealer Cults could get one. Other than that, I also had notes about the Sanctus, which is more of a sort of assassin type character for the Genestealer Cults. You kind of flood the board with their summons, and then you have some more lethal units in the form of the Sanctus and Jude. What about you? Do you think I've missed anything?
They have a lot of characters. I do love the idea of getting a character riding a motorcycle. I would love that. And they have options. They have people with axes on motorcycles. They have a character with a sniper rifle on the motorcycle. So I do think that will be awesome. Mounted characters, I love them in Tacticus. I think that we have like 1 for Orks. One other thing they could possibly do is the Abominant, where it's just this big, mutated Genestealer Gold guy who has a big hammer that does like an obscene amount of damage. So that could be cool too. Personally, they're the same to me. They're both awesome. The more non-basic infantry things we have in the game, the more of a fan I am. So I would love to see either of them.
I think we've already got the Aberrant. It's the Holland creates it, doesn't he? With his active ability, the Aberrant Hypermorph, it creates one of those summons.
Oh, you're right. I completely forgot about that. Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it really shows how disconnected I am. But yeah, if that's the case, the people on the motorcycles, either the non-named version on the motorcycle with the axe, or the named one with the sniper rifle on the motorcycle. I think those would be perfect.
I think it's your turn. Adeptus Custodes.
Custodes. Ooh, I think we had talked about this before. I don't know if how many characters do they have right now?
They've got 5. I can take you through who they have got. So they've got Aesoth, who's a Vexillus Praetor. They've got Atlacoia, who's a Vigilator. They've got Tyrith, Custodian Guard. Carrion, Blade Champion. And Trajan, Captain General.
Okay. So remember, I remember talking to you. We had gone over this, and it's most of the stuff we talked about. One thing that's missing there is the Aloris Custodian. Now, Aloris Custodians, they are the go-to Terminators for the Custodian faction. They are very iconic. Every edition, they are taken. I'm very surprised that they're actually not in the game. I will put all my money on Aloris Custodians, and say, you'll probably get them because of how popular they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're the missing piece for the Custodes, aren't they? I don't think there's any debate or any argument for me. A lot of people were disappointed when Tyrith was their 5th character instead of the Aloris Terminators. So I suspect we'll end up seeing them as a 6th character if and when that happens. Emperor's Children are next. I think it's back to me. I really struggled with this one, truthfully. Don't know enough about the Emperor's Children, and when I was going onto their online sort of range of models, I couldn't see something that easily fit the bill. We already have Noise Marines, we've already got a Lord Exultant, we've already got Lucius, we've already got Flawless Blades, we've already got a Lord Cacophonist. So yeah, I was stuck here. Do you have any ideas?
Personally, I'm going to stand adamant that they should add a Terminator to the faction. On tabletop, they don't really have Terminators. They don't really run Terminators. It's just for a sake of consistency, in my opinion. Death Guard has a Terminator. World Leaders have a Terminator. Whatchamacallit? Every Chaos faction has a Terminator but them. And I'm going to be completely honest. The Terminators for World Leaders, they were quite popular, the Red Butcher Terminators, but it's not like we have them in the game right now. Like, they don't even exist on tabletop. So the fact that Emperor's Children doesn't have a Terminator model on table, or rather, they don't bring Terminators in their faction, shouldn't take away from the fact that, like, every Chaos faction gets a Terminator. I don't know, I'm very biased in that sense that, like, I want to see a Terminator, I want to see consistency. But yeah, it's kind of difficult to gauge what they will add. They don't really have too many infantry units to choose from, so...
The only thing that I could think of was they do have a couple of sort of daemon-type units. They've got the Daemonettes, they've got Fiends. I think the Daemonettes might be a bit too sort of risque for the game, if you know what I mean, but I couldn't really think of anything.
Yeah, it's always a toss-up when it comes to adding Slaanesh to the game, because of how, let's say, open their models are. So I wonder if Games Workshop and even Snowprint, they're willing to, go that extra mile to make the models more safe, let's say. So I'm not, like, super sure about Demonettes. I might be wrong. I've been wrong before. It will be cool. I love demons.
Yeah, and thanks for bearing with me, Draupnir. We're now on to the last faction, which is the Leagues of Votann. So they're the most recently released faction. We only have 3 out of 5. I already know sort of who's coming, who's filling them out, so I won't speculate here. But in terms of stuff we've got a Brockhair Ironmaster, we've got Uthar the Destined as the faction's legendary character, and we have Amok Memnir Strategist. So your guesses for 4 and 5. I won't bother you with number 6.
Okay, so Uthar the Destined is actually a named version of the Call. So we have the Call. That's pretty cool. We have the Iron Master, correct? So that's the guy who summons the drones. And Who was the last guy you mentioned?
I've got Amok Memnir Strategist.
Amok Memnir
So he summons an Ironkin Steeljack.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting that they actually have Steeljacks. Okay, so I'm not too familiar with Votann. I do think they will definitely add an Einir champion. This is a guy that, runs forward, has a big, massive hammer, bonks people in the head. Last edition, he had an ability where he could, like, dash forward with blinding speed. So I think he's probably a safe bet as to what will be added to the game. Other than that, I would really, really, above all else, love to see Pioneers. Harnkiern Pioneers. These are the guys on the hover jet bikes. It might be a little too big for Tacticus, but come on, we've been nudging the scales. It's fine. I think that'll be pretty cool just to, like, have this unit that flies in, shoots, runs away, perhaps with their active ability like once per game, nothing too crazy. I'm less sure about them. I'm pretty sure about the champion. I'm like confident we're going to get the champion because of how iconic he is. He's one of, like, the main guys when the faction came out.
Okay, great. I mean, I won't add anything there, as I said, because I already know the next characters that are coming out. But that was awesome. Thank you so much for making time to chat to me on a Sunday afternoon. We've been talking for, almost 45 minutes. So thank you to Mrs. Nandi for editing that all down and making it coherent. And I hope you enjoy the video when it comes out, Draupnir.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Just to sign off, a thank you, as always, to my Patreons and YouTube members for their support. Bye for now.